Okay, what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, got another weekly Forex analysis for you. On the screen, other pairs will be analyzing today, but make sure you stay to the end of the video like always, guys, because I will be walking through each and every pair, talking through what's happened this week and potentially what could happen next week as well. But for all that said, guys, let's get straight into it. Okay, so first up, we've got Euro USD. So Euro USD coming into the week, we were looking for buys. Price was trading at the low of the range, looking for a push simply back into the highs of the range. And if we can break through that, looking to tap into some of these levels up there. Nice area of supply, also that support term resistance up there. So Euro USD, we're looking for buys coming into the week, and we did see that move to the upside. However, as you can see, we did not really get that break we were looking for. Price did respect that support quite well, pushed the upside into the highs of the range, but we came straight back down there on Friday. And you can see we're closing below there. So Euro USD pretty much just fluctuated this week, but it does look like potentially we could roll over. So coming into next week, the plan of action will be looking for the retest of this level to short it back down into the lows, all the way down here at 1.11900. You can see here previously we got a false break, so now we'll be looking for the actual break. Here we never got the retest we were looking for to short it back down, so hopefully here we can get the retest to short that back down, and like I said, we'll be targeting the lows previously down there at 1.11900. Potentially could try and push it down a little bit more to see if we can hit that 1.11, but just to be safe, sorry, we'll just look for a push into the lows down there. If we do snap back above that level, then we'll simply just look to play the range again and just anticipate the markets continue the range after that false break. So we can look for buyers on the retest of that at 1.12600 and simply look for a push to the highs of the range at 1.13390. So it's either two plans of action this week. It's either we look for a price to snap back in the range and we look to play the range, or we look for that breakout, get that retest, and then to continue to the low. So either which way, we can get some nice sells or buys in. It does look like that's a good close below, so we could be getting that break, but if not, we'll look to play the range for next week. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to USD JPY. So USD JPY coming into the week, we were expecting price to roll over. We were rejecting, for going to the 4H, we were rejecting this really nice support term resistance there. However, the market broke through. We kind of got that bull pattern there as price put those higher lows, and then we snapped through that level, and now we snap back below. So the market here is quite choppy for USD. I mean, essentially all this price action here is just price moving sideways, consolidating, trying to find a direction. Right now we do have some bullish structure in place. We've got this low here, high, higher low, higher high, and a price pushing back to form equal lows here. So the market is technically still a little bit bullish. You can see that on the daily as price is trying to push higher. So you might actually see price push to the upside one more time, again for USD JPY, coming into this kind of head and shoulder area of the left shoulder over there, the head, and potentially pushing back into that right shoulder area, in line with the left shoulder, and then we potentially could roll over for USD because this price action is quite corrective, so potentially we could get that rollover. However, we haven't got it quite just yet, so looking for one more push to the upside for USD back into the highs up here, or potentially just into that head and shoulder area, 114,500. Then from there potentially we can look to sell it back down. Got some nice trend line confluence there as well, connecting those highs, and then potentially from this area we could roll over. So looking for one more push to the upside for USD with the recent price action going on there and the daily candlestick closures, and then potentially we could roll over either from this high or from 114,500. So plan for next week, looking for some buys. You can drop to low time frames for that buy, for a push back up into those highs up there, and then from that resistance, if we can hold it, of course we'll look for selling opportunities to take this one down. But do beware, the market is quite corrective, quite choppy, so you might not see the cleanest price action in the world for USD. But if you do get a nice opportunity, we'll look for the buys to take it back up again, and then we'll look to sell it back down afterwards. Okay, so next up we're going to take a look at USD CAD. So USD CAD this week has been pretty bullish. We've seen a lot of upside. I was talking to you guys potentially about some upside last week. So we had our level drawn in here for potentially price to roll back over, because we had this very, very impulsive leg to the downside, so potentially we could have found resistance here to roll back over. But I said if we do snap back above this level, which we did quite aggressively, we probably will roll over and fill the range back to the highs and probably see some higher highs. So in fact we did snap above and we did see those higher highs form. And again, that's just because of taking account to the higher time frames, that potentially this push to the downside here was potentially going to form a higher low of this strong push, and then we can see the continuation, and that's exactly what happened there. And you were still looking quite bullish right now. So coming into next week for USD CAD, I'm still expecting probably more upside. Looking to the left, we do have these important wicks that price is starting to take out. We've taken out the first wick there, and I do think we're going to start to try and take out the second one, which we haven't done yet. So I'm expecting next week price to push through that wick and probably push into 1.3, very, very strong psychological level. So if we do have enough juice to make that move, then yeah, 1.3, but I think at least want to take out that wick for next week. We still do have that strong momentum in USD CAD now. CAD looks still quite weak, and USD still looks quite strong, so we'll be expecting to see this momentum continue. So looking for opportunities to trade this. We do have a really nice level of resistance here on the left, will be turned support, so we'll be looking for the retest of this level, see if price can hold, and we'll be looking for those buys. And we do have this trend line now connecting those lows there. So if you look for kind of a test of that trend line, of that support, really nice confidence in that area. We'll look for buys at 1.28 440. Take that into the wick there, which is a daily wick I'm expecting to get taken out over here. And then potentially some new highs at 1.3. So that's the idea for next week. If we do snap back below all of these, the trend line and the level, then potentially some sales will be looking good. I'm not expecting that to happen, but I'll let you guys know just in case that does happen. Of course, better to be prepared for anything and prepared to trade it. So if that does happen, we snap through that, then yes, we'll be looking for sales back at the retest of 1.28400 to roll over, but I'm not expecting that to happen. Mainly looking for the buys to push this one forward. So that's the idea for next week for USD CAD. Sorry to interrupt the video, guys, but if you are enjoying the content and you find it useful, make sure you go hit the subscribe button down below, and also make sure you drop a like as well. It really does help the channel out. But anyway, back to the video. Okay, now we're going to move on to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound this week, price looks like it's starting to roll over again. Last week we were talking about this channel price was trading in, as you can see, connecting the highs of the trend here and the lows of the trend. Price has been moving in this channel for some time now, and potentially, as I said last week, we could look to roll over back to the lows here around 0.83800. So we could roll over here for Euro Pound. I did say last week we will be looking for a certain level to break to look for those sells, which would be this support here, which does look like price is just breaking through. Again, not the most convincing break. Want to see price push a little bit further than that, retest it, and then the sells will definitely be onto the downside for Euro Pound. So you could target the trend line all the way down here. You could be safe in the sorry, look to target the high of this we never got the retest of, the low, the previous low, and then potentially could look to target the trend line. But we'll be looking to sell the market. We'll wait for the market to push a little bit further first, just to confirm that break a little bit more, because we could easily snap to the upside there, after those wicks there, quite aggressive, false breaks of that level. So we'll wait for the market to push down a little bit, but we'll be looking for the break and retest of 0.84900. Push that down into the highs of this range here, which we never got the retest of, and then potentially the lows of the range, and then potentially the low of the trend line, depending how far you want to push the trade. But that's what the plan is for next week. If we do snap back above, then we might be seeing the push back into the trend line, the upper trend line that is, for Euro Pound. Again, I don't think price will do that, but if the price does break back above, the buys will be looking good, because at that point price will really be holding to this level, and we would expect price to move in the opposite direction, of course. So depending if you can break through or hold the level, either looking for sells or buys, but some good opportunities coming up next week for Euro Pound. Okay, so let's see what's happening with Aodu USD. So this week we had a bullish price coming into the week. We had this massive bearish trend. That price has broken through that trend line from. So we're expecting to see a bit more upside this week, which we did briefly. I was talking to you guys about that head and shoulder pattern, about price pushing back into this prior in the left shoulder, forming that right shoulder, which we did form there. And I said looking for the break of that neckline to push higher. We did see that push higher. It was short-lived because I did say to you guys, you could either look to get long on the shoulder or wait for the retest of the neckline here. Obviously, you can see that retest failed and price broke to the downside. So that was kind of a false break of the neckline, and we sort of are starting to look a little bit bearish again here for for AUD/USD. We're starting to look a little bit bearish here. So if I take this level here on the left, which essentially prices failed to break from, so you can see support there, taking across resistance. We wicked into it previously, dumped, wicked into it a few times, fell to the downside, tried to break through it again, massive wick, and then we got a strong bearish close. So essentially the market is just holding on to this support and resistance and could give us another drive back down to the lows. So next week for AUD/USD, I'll be looking to see if the market can break through this support here, and if we can, we probably would expect price to roll back over into the lows. Nice 100 pip drop there to the downside. So it's up to you how you want to play it. You can wait for the safe entry would be waiting for price to break through this support here, look for the retest. If we can get one, of course, then we'll look to short it back down, or you could wait for price to pull back up into the neckline, back up into that resistance on the daily, and then look for shorts there. So it's up to you how you want to play it. If you do look for shorts here, of course, you probably want to be taking profit, you know, at this support here, because price could bounce against you, fluctuate in range in this kind of little you know, resistance and support between those two levels. But if we can break through, I will be expecting price to roll over back down to 0.7 next week. Okay, so up next we've got NZD CAD. So NZD CAD, we did see a bit of a move to the upside this week, which was expected from the weekly time frame. I did say to you guys, it looks like potentially the weekly is getting that false break. So we got this support there, nice support at 0.86400. Price snapped through that on the previous week, with that wick, pulled all the way back up and closed above that area. So we had a false break on the weekly of that level. So potentially you could see the next week push bullish, which we did. It did pull back quite substantially towards the end of the week, but we did see that push to the upside. So either one or two things are on, because that is a weak candle. We could still roll over, break through the support, or potentially could find support there and continue with that false break. And if that's the case, we could be pushing back to the highs of the range up there. So taking that information down onto the daily time frame, we'll be looking for simply either two things. If we go to the 4H actually, we're looking for the retest of this as price comes down to push that high. If that's the case, then we probably do have that false break. Expecting a push into this level and then potentially higher. But for next week, we'll just be looking for a push back up into that resistance, not trying to be too aggressive. But if price does go and break through that support, and then we probably do have the actual breakout on our hands, and we'll look for push right back down into these lows. So depending if we can hold on to that level or not, we'll decide if we're looking for that push or if we're looking for price to fall back over. So mainly interested on 0.86400 for next week, either push up to 0.87400 or back down to 0.85500. Okay, now I'm going to move on to pound NZD. So pound NZD, we did see some upside this week. Again, we still do have that potential head and shoulders pattern in play here for this pair, and we could be getting ready for a big push to the upside. And I do think we can break through this neckline, stroke that, you know, that resistance, you know, support, resistance. I do think we can break through this, and if we do, we'll be looking for price to fill the range to the upside into that kind of 1.99500 level, or just around 300 pips there. So a big move could be on the cards for pound NZD, filling up that gap. Of course, we do need to do the most important thing first, which is actually break through the level. So coming into this week, we were looking for buys for pound NZD. As said, either look for a retest of this trend line, or either look for price to come back and retest this support, and then you can look for buys off that. This week we got the retest of the trend line. We didn't come into that support, but we did see a nice bounce from that trend line to the upside. So pound NZD for me is just squeezing between this resistance and that trend line, simply squeezing, getting ready for either a break to the upside, expecting, doing what we're expecting, or breaking to the downside and coming right back into that 1.93500 area. So depending on pound NZD, we're either looking for sells or buys. Not going to be tried too predictive with this pair, even though I do expect price to push to the upside. If the market does show some nice bearish structure, breaks through the trend line, I will actually be looking for sells. So to look for sells, I want to see price break out of this trend line and hold that resistance. I'll look for lower high to form somewhere, and then I'll short it back down again. But we do need to get below that trend line for me to look for shorts. And do watch out for false breaks, of course. But if we can snap through this resistance here of 1.96600, we'll look for the retest and the buys to go long and just fill that range to the upside. Obviously, you don't have to look for the whole move. That's 300 pips. That's a lot of pips. You can look for a third of it, just 100 pips, depending on what type of trader you are. But we could potentially see that range getting filled there for pound NZD. So either looking for the sells if we can break below the trend line back into 1.93600, or break and retest of that key level 1.96690 back up to 1.995. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to CAD JPY. So this pair, we had a bearish bias coming into the week. We had a nice retest of this level, break and retest of that price swing low, forming that nice swing high there. We had that evening star pattern as well as that shooting star. So we were expecting price to roll over back down into these lows here. We haven't quite reached that, as you can see. We're not too far away. Had a nice pullback, looking for entries there, and we did see price roll over. So I'm still expecting price to roll over here. We're still putting in those lower lows and lower highs here. So I do think CAD JPY most likely next week will push into these lows and probably take them out. And we do have our next target at 87. So looking for sells this week, really. Hopefully we can see one more opportunity to get into some shorts. Maybe not as big of a pullback as that one, but we could see the market snap up a little bit, 30, 40, 50 pips, and then roll over, and we could be looking for entries. We do have some nice support and resistance going through here around the 88,700 mark. So looking for a pullback into this area, hopefully, then we can short it back down to those lows, potentially push it into 87, or you can look for a break and retest of the price swing low, wait for the retest and get short to swing it back down into those lows. So for me, CAD JPY very much a bearish pair, only looking to short the pair. I'm not interested in getting long on the retest of that. We potentially could turn bullish, but I'd rather price turn bullish and then I'll get into a swing, a continuation trade, rather than looking for the reversal. So right now the pair is very, very bearish on the higher time frames as well. I'm expecting price to roll over, so simply just wait for pullback to short it back down again, or a break and retest of that price swing low at 87,800. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to pound USD. So pound USD, we're expecting a push to the upside this week, which we did see. Again, short-lived, price came straight back down. I was talking to you guys last week looking for a push back up into this support time resistance at 1.33600. Price did break out of our trend line last week, so we're looking for price to form that higher low. It did come back to retest this price swing low here. Again, a few times actually before we did see that move into that level, and pretty much on a pinhead, we just actually dropped from that level coming into Friday. So US dollar looking fairly bullish again, pound USD again looking bearish, and I do think we'll roll back over into these lows and potentially see some new lows as well, because this potentially could be a new swing high for us. And now after that swing high, what do we expect? Expect price to come at least back to the lows, but more often than not, we do see some lower lows form, potentially 1.31 there, not too far away as well. So looking for shorts for pound USD coming into the week. Again, strong impulsive move there, so we want to see some retracement. We do have really nice resistance down the left, so taking that across will be acting as resistance again at 1.32700. We'll look for a push down into those lows there, which is at the bottom of this wick here, which price keeps putting a lot of wicks into. So another push back into those lows. Again, you might want to drop to the lower time frames to make much better risk to reward here. Hourly, 30-minute, back down into back down into that low there, and if you can snap through, then might try and see if you can push this to 1.31. But at least for this week, I do think we can see a push into those lows at 1.32. So pound USD for me, expect the price to roll over back down to lows, potentially new lows at 1.31, but mainly looking for sales at that 1.32700 area. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at pound CAD. So pound CAD, we did see that momentum continue this week, right back into our key level at 1.70500. Dropping to the 4-hour time frame, as I said, there's two levels that we will be looking for sales, which would be this support term resistance, and obviously that resistance there. However, we can see we barely reacted with this one, snapped through quite easily. Pushing to that level, we did see a brief reaction. I did say probably look to take profit here. We snapped from that one, had some news there, and we did push the upside quite rapidly. So I do think pound CAD can actually eventually break through this level, or at least try break through it again, and push into 1.72, which is this area of wicks up here. I do think that can happen. If not, we could come straight back down, because you can see previously price comes straight back down when we do successfully react with this level. So we could roll over, but because of this momentum here, it potentially looks like price wants to try and break through this, and we could be seeing some buys to take that into 1.72. So if we can break through that, we'll look for the break and retest, of course, to trade it into 1.72. Not going to just buy into straight away. We need to see that break to confirm to us that we are pushing higher. If not, I mean, just consisting to put some wicks into that level like we did previously over there, and like we did a lot over there, then price probably will not get that break, and we could roll over again, see a push back down into this support as the first target, and then if we can make it past that, we'll be looking at this support here as the second target. So pound CAD will be playing off this level this week, seeing how price reacts with that. If we can snap through, I'm expecting price to push on to 1.72. If not, we can short back down again into that support, then 1.68500 if we can break through that one as well. Okay, so now I'm going to take a look at pound JPY. So pound JPY, we did see price snap to the upside this week. Again, we were testing a very key level here at 149. Expecting to see a bounce if price can obviously break through this kind of local resistance down the daily, which we did snap through, and we were expecting to see a push into this support time resistance up there. We tapped into that and came straight back down. So pound JPY is looking bearish here. I do think price is giving us another lower high, so we had a lower high up here, and I think price has done that again with this massive wick to the upside. So I'm expecting price to roll over now back down into 149, maybe snap through it as well, because I'm expecting price to break through this level eventually. Maybe that massive wick there grabbing all liquidity, supply, some sell orders could now go break through that level, potentially have that reversal on the higher time frames. Or we could see price come and test that level and have another reaction. We'll find out when we do come back there, but price is looking quite bearish right now. It's holding on to that daily support, resistance and support now, so we might see a slight pullback for pound JPY, but for me, only really looking for sales, not interested in the buys for this one. So either looking at price breaking through the trend line, coming back, retesting, and then selling it back down to 149 for next week. Or if we do hold on to this, we'll look for price to push back up to the upside, form another lower high, then roll over looking for sells. We do have some nice resistance slash supply over here on the left at 151,500, so naturally we'll be looking for sells around here as well to short that back down again. So for me, just mainly focusing on sells, not interested in buys here. Looks like price has given us that another major lower high, so I'm simply looking just to carry that momentum to the downside. The immediate trend is still bearish here, and we're just looking to get continuations in that direction. So target for this week, 149 down there, either waiting for break of the trend line, retest, then short, or if we hold on to that, looking for another major lower high up there, just short this one back down at 151,500, back down to 149 for next week. Okay, so let's take a look at gold now. So gold, we did see a move to the upside this week. Again, we were expecting that push to the upside. Last week, price was holding on to the support here on the left slash demand. 1.70, expecting to see a push to the upside. We tried to break it a few times. Overall price was just consolidating, but we were expecting price to snap that to the upside, and we did see that move last week. I said we're even looking for price excuse me, to break through the support, retest it, then get along. So didn't really get a clear buy point there. Price was putting some major wicks to the upside, so there was no really good buys there. Yes, we were getting the break and retest, but it wasn't clear to begin with. And then I said if we come here, we can look for buyers to take this up. Now again, a big news event, wick to the downside, grabbing a lot of liquidity, taking a lot of stop losses before the move. So for this one, just depends when you got in. If you got in after the news or before, if you got in before, you most likely would have been taken out by that wick there. But if you waited after news, could have got a nice buy order to take that to the upside after that liquidity grab there. So gold looking fairly bullish here, but I do think we're going to roll back over next week here for gold, looking primarily for sells. Our target for the week was 1810, which was up here, and as you can see, we smashed through that, wicked above it, and then pulled all the way back down. I do think for gold, we're coming right back into this support here with all these wicks here. So I'm mainly focused on sells for gold. If we break through 1810, which is this level here, then yeah, buys will be looking good, potentially to go and retrace some of that price action there on the left. So potentially buys there, but for me, I don't think that will happen. But you know, I'll inform you guys of that, just to be on the safe side. If that does happen, you can look for a push into this support here / supply up there at 1847. So that could be some nice buys if we snap through that level. But I don't think we will. I think we're just going to roll back down into 1765 for next week. So looking for that test which we had just before the week closed. Nice aggressive move to the upside, few weeks, and then we're looking fairly bearish. So simply looking for price to retrace, maybe with the lower time frames, maybe even retest that level again and set it right back down into these lows. So bearish for the week for gold, looking for price to hold 1808 as resistance. I'm expecting price to come here. You can probably look for targets around here, take some profit, or just look for that move. And if we can snap through that kind of mid-level between that range, probably most likely we'll roll over to 1768 down there. So looking for sells for gold, expect the move to the downside, holding that resistance. If we don't and we break through the level, we'll flip bias to bullish and look for a push into 1847 up there. And finally, we've got Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's still quite corrective, still slightly rolling over, making lower lows and lower highs in the daily. I still think potentially we could, snap back to the lows and fill the wick to the downside. We could push to the upside. If we drop to the lower time frames, you can see it a little bit more clearer. Like I pointed out last week, you still do have this support on the left. That price is still holding 47k mark, which we can still snap to the upside and see a nice push. Still looking at a push into this support here on the left, which we didn't retest at 53,882. So we could see that move to the upside. But first, I do want to see price snap above that trend line there. We'll look for a pullback of some kind, retest of the trend line, potentially a higher low, and then we look for some buys there to take this one higher to the upside. And yeah, that will be the target, which we potentially could roll over again. But if we can snap back below this level here, then I would expect price to go and fill the wick to the downside, back down to the 42k mark. So just depends where we find resistance and where we find support, if we can hold on to this level and if we can snap through that trend line. But essentially, break through that support, we'll look for sells on the retest. Break through the trend line, we'll look for buyers in the retest. And targets for the week, if we do get that buy opportunity, will be at 153,500, which is that support term resistance. If not, we snap through this level, we'll look for price to fill the wick to the downside at 42k on the break and retest of that support at 46,700. Okay, so that is the end of the video, guys. Hope you all enjoyed that and found that useful. Any questions, agree or disagree, something you don't understand, let me know in the comments down below and I'll make sure I get back to you. If you do enjoy the channel, guys, enjoy the content, feel free to like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell. It all does really help the channel out and I do appreciate that. But hope you guys have a great weekend and I'll catch you guys next week.